How's it going, guys? This is Oliver. So I kind of lied in the last video. Read aloud isn't the most straightforward question type. Everything's easy. So let me make it up to you guys by jumping right in and talk about the reason why you're all here today. Let's talk about repeat sentence. This is probably one of the most stressful question types out there. You will get 10 to 12 questions, each with a sentence being read to you. Then you have to repeat it as completely as you humanly can and maintain composure with a smile on your face like a professional working at a call center while being dead inside because your neighbors seem to be chanting a spell trying to summon a demon. You might also regret just a little bit for booking the morning session because your coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Seriously guys, if you have the option to take the test in the afternoon, why go at 9 o'clock in the morning? That's just easy $300 per person, like taking candy away from children. As always, you have to look out for fluency and pronunciation for this question type. You also have content, which goes from 0 to 3 for each individual sentence. Just like how it is for read aloud, if you make no mistake when reciting the sentence, and by a mistake, I mean omitting, replacing, or adding words to the original text, you will get the 3 full points. In other words, you will be given a full content score if and only if you repeat the sentence perfectly. Each sentence usually consists of somewhere between 8 to 15 words, with some extremely rare exceptions to this range. Sounds easy enough, right? Most students tend to break down and cry when they first go through this question type. A bunch of babies. So where's the difficulty? It probably has something to do with the fact that after listening to the sentence, you only have 3 seconds to prepare. This is a very harsh limitation. Not only does it put students under immense pressure, it also heavily restricts some strategies that would otherwise be feasible. I'll give you a quick example. At the end of the test, you have write from dictation for listening, and it basically asks you to do the exact same thing. You listen to a sentence, but instead of talking, you write it down. Also, you usually have way more time for write from dictation than for repeat sentence. Getting ahead of ourselves just a bit, a common strategy for write from dictation is to write down the first letters of every word you hear, and later on, reverse engineer the acronym to figure out what the letters mean. Obviously, this wouldn't work for repeat sentence, at least for most students, because you probably won't remember what the letters actually stand for in only 3 seconds. Of course, there always exist some students who possess exceptional penmanship skills that allow them to basically write down the whole thing. In that case, this question type should be a walk in the park for you. But still, I have some useful input that you might want to consider subscribing and keep on watching. The button is right there. Click it. You know you want to. So here's my input, referring to my last video talking about how read aloud lays the foundation for all other speaking questions, except answer short question because that weirdo doesn't care about fluency or pronunciation. For every other question type that does have the 2 scoring components, the officials never specified how different they actually are. We'll cut the chit chat and jump straight to the point. If you can jot down the whole sentence because you maxed your skill for calligraphy, you still have to read it out loud, just like you would for read aloud. This is probably one of the most groundbreaking discoveries I found during my journey of teaching the test. For most of you guys, English is probably not your first language. For whatever language you find yourself comfortable speaking, try to find the difference between having a daily conversation and reading poetry. You'll realize soon enough that those 2 are completely different ways to talk, and for PTE academic, you should always remind yourself that you should be doing the latter. The officials never claimed that fluency and pronunciation are treated the same for all speaking question types, and again, we are excluding answer short question from the conversation like the bullies we are. This is based on experience and it's shown to be extremely successful, changing the mindset from talking to reading some script, either shown on screen as in read aloud or being heard as in repeat sentence, is the core concept of mastering speaking in general. This method, apart from being approved by the scoring algorithm, also serves many other purposes. Most people's speech tends to be faster when talking, but when you read, however, it is a completely different story. We all have that experience of being called out in class and asked to read some of the passages from a book in which you had zero interest. Horrible feeling indeed. And now, I ask you all to channel that painful memory into some more painful but productive actions. You're always more careful when reading something compared to chit-chatting with your friend about how you're going to marry one of your idols, and usually you tend to slow down quite significantly. This is great practice when doing speaking, since you only have one try for everything, and the theme for the test is to reduce mistakes to a minimum. We will discuss this further in later videos, but for now, the main takeaway is you should be quote-unquote reading the sentence, instead of whatever diabolical speaking habit you might have. This is a mentality that will take some time to get used to, but once you do, I kid you not, I can almost guarantee a 10 to 20 point increase in speaking just by this one tip alone. So you read out the sentence instead of whatever gibberish you usually speak. It's quite difficult to pull off without practice, and even more so in a stressful environment. Like when the frickin' marker runs out of ink mid-sentence. I just want a regular pen and some paper. Is it really too much to ask? But you'll see the benefits very soon if you can employ this strategy during daily practice. Yes, I said daily, you lazy bastard. Moving on, what if you can take good notes and answer the questions solely based on that? Then I would suggest either simplifying your notes and finding an efficient system, like using symbols to replace some of the common words, or you stop taking notes completely. Those markers and laminated booklets are just an abomination that never should have been invented in the first place. Such a tragedy in human history. So note-taking, you definitely don't need it. I finished the whole test without ever opening that damn thing. So I suggest you give it a try, and if it works, then congratulations, you have found a better method. If you don't like it, you can always go back to take some notes and try to find the balance between note-taking and focusing on the audio. Wait a minute, I got so sidetracked that I forgot to tell you exactly how content is scored. Let's do that right now. You get a 3 for making no mistakes, and you get a 2 for getting half of it right. Getting a 1 means you didn't get half of it right, and getting a 0 means you choked hard, and it's not acceptable. Hang on, you only need half of the sentence to get a 2? That right there is a $1 million idea. It has all come together, hasn't it? We know that content usually isn't something to strive for, so long as you can make sure it doesn't go to 0. It's really not that hard for you to get at least half of the sentence correctly, so most agencies will straight up tell you that you should go after a 2. My message would be slightly different, especially to those who aim to score high and actually achieve something in life. If the sentence is pretty short and simple, why not go for a 3 in content if you can? The worst case scenario would just be making a small mistake and still getting a 2. After all, it wouldn't hurt to try. For longer sentences, you can strategically go for the 2 right from the get-go while keeping fluency and pronunciation in mind. Here's a little quiz to see if you have actually been paying attention. What method can we use during the test for read aloud to help improve fluency and pronunciation that we can utilize for repeat sentence as well? The answer is, what is the power of something? If you got it right, good for you. If you didn't, go back and watch the read aloud video. Your life depends on it. The method of something is probably even more powerful for repeat sentence than for read aloud. I've seen too many students who heard a difficult word and then forgot about the entire thing when trying to figure out what that one word is. This is very important stuff that is worth taking some notes and subscribing. Every word is treated equally, so it's never worth it to dwell upon that one word while giving up on the rest. Getting the easy parts is not just good enough. You can get a 90 in speaking if you tell me you can get 12 points out of the 13. That is, assuming you don't suck at other speaking questions. Here is an example from the official offline practice test to demonstrate this.
The university has a world-renowned school of archaeology.
I would rate this a meh difficulty among the questions, and many of you might disagree.
What?
Get discouraged and start booking for IELTS instead. This sentence has a few difficult words in it. There is a possibility that many of you don't know what archaeology means, But just like for read aloud, it doesn't matter. Thing is, for read aloud, at least you can look at the word and try to come up with a pronunciation. I wouldn't recommend you trying this for repeat sentence at all if you don't know what the word means, because then you're just trying to mimic the pronunciation you just heard, which is usually a bad idea. Simple answer, switch it to something if you're not very sure that you can get it right. Are you ready for the crazy part? Here is the script of the sentence. It only has 9 words in it, 8 if you count world-renowned as 1. Whichever way it is, after looking at the sentence, do you see an easy way to get at least half of it right? What about the university has a school of something? That's 6 words already. Does it still seem that difficult to you? You even have a bit of a margin for error in case you misheard or left out the or of. Here's the beauty of this method. You have retained the core structure of the original sentence. This means you can simplify the sentence and still say it while referring to the tone of the original audio. This basically ensures a very good fluency. When you sense a pause or change of rhythm in the audio, you just tag along. This is like giving away free points. Let this be a reminder that whatever technique we went through for read aloud and speaking in general, they all apply to repeat sentence. So remember to pause and stress at suitable occasions. Also, by simplifying the sentence to the level of a 10-year-old, you can't fail at scoring high for pronunciation. If you still manage to find a way to butcher the pronunciation of the university has a school of something, you're truly a genius on your own right. Of course, if you know how to pronounce world-renowned in archaeology, this is a very good example of a sentence that you can try to get a 3 for content. It has a simple structure and the word count is below average. Now, what about a more complex sentence? Here is an example.
There will be a conference here next summer on using the web for academic research.
This is a good representation of the maximum difficulty you can expect during the test. Trying to get a perfect content is going to be pretty difficult because it's very easy to drop some of the words in the grand total of 15. This time, I won't be showing you the script just yet, but I will play the audio once again. I don't want you to try and repeat the sentence straight away, but instead answer the following questions. The first is how many parts are there in her speech? The second is, do there exist clusters of simple words that you can bunch up and memorize as a whole?
There will be a conference here next summer on using the web for academic research.
So here is the sentence. The answer to the first question should be 3 because she had 2 obvious pauses, but 4 is also an acceptable answer. You have to keep this in mind because this will later on help you to determine what rhythm she actually used, and this can actually help you to memorize the things that you hear. Let's answer the second question right now. The first cluster is very easy, there will be. You should always pay attention to these common expressions in English because you should be quite familiar with them, and they are usually made up of multiple simple words. Including the there's 4 easy words you should get right without any issue. Can you believe that out of the 15 words you have already got 4? If you manage to get another 4, you're already good for a 2 in content. It's much less intimidating now, isn't it? Conference is not too uncommon of a word, but for all intents and purposes, it is arguably the most difficult word in this particular sentence. If you find yourself struggling to remember the second half of the sentence because you were too focused on this one word alone, remember that it's not worth it. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you most likely will know that there's a word there because you just heard there will be a, so something fits right in. The next cluster is here next summer. Again, very common expressions. I oftentimes find students to either only get the here or next summer, because indeed most sentences ending with an adverb or adverb phrase usually have only one. But again, you are expected to drop words here or there to begin with, so don't be too harsh on yourself. That's my job, and don't take the fun out of it. Then the sentence ends with 2 prepositions. They are the 2 other clusters. Once you learn how to break down a sentence according to its structure, not only will it make listening easier, it will also greatly improve your reading efficiency. You better believe we will talk about this method again when we discuss reading and listening. It is a very powerful method that not only helps you with the test, but will also benefit you long term for improving your English in general. Back to the question. You have two options here. If you can remember one of the full clusters, you just say it. Dropping an entire cluster is actually not a bad thing, because then the sentence is still grammatically correct, so your fluency will still be unaffected. The second option is to cheese it and go by using something for something. Again, you will meet the goal of getting at least half of the sentence correctly. Easy. Here are some further comments. The speaker who recorded the audio is probably a British person due to her accent. In American English, the last word is pronounced research with a stress in the front. It should not concern you because both pronunciations should be considered correct. Also, during your practice, and you should because otherwise I will yell at you. Don't set the bar to only getting half of the sentence. Doing so leaves very little room for error during the actual test, especially if you plan to score high. Please remember that the method of something and aiming to get half of the sentence are pure strategies for taking the test, so don't waste your time when practicing on your own. Now that you have learned the methodology and mentality on how to approach repeat sentence, what's left is for you to practice the hell out of it. If you attend a course at an agency, you will be told that repeat sentence is the most important question type for speaking and for listening.
What?
Guess I should have mentioned it earlier, huh? Yes, repeat sentence does affect the listening score, but personally, I never truly bought the notion that repeat sentence is more significant than any other question type. My reasoning is this. The officials never disclosed how the raw scores are translated to the numbers you see on the report card, and this just doesn't feel like a very difficult question, at least not for me. Other questions like retell lecture and summarize spoken text, which take much longer to do and are objectively more difficult, are said to be worth much less than just those 10 to 12 sentences. It's intuitively hard to convince myself that this question type is as important in terms of weighting as describe image, and it is worth more points for listening than any other actual listening question. It just doesn't feel right. Now, what I will say is this, it is quite important. I just don't like the way agencies downplay the other questions. Repeat sentence is a question type that will show significant improvement when given enough practice. Also, people who find this question type easy tend to be the ones with the more solid English foundation, like myself. So to me, this question type is more of a testing agent to distinguish students of different capabilities. Those who got a 79 or even 90 probably won't struggle with this question type too much. But don't worry if you are experiencing difficulties, because you definitely can improve a lot if you are determined to practice religiously. Yes, I said religiously. Agencies sometimes recommend doing 50 sentences a day. I'll be a bit easier on you, but maybe start with 45? Thanks for watching till the end. Please like, subscribe, and share if this video has given you some useful insight. There will be another practice walkthrough on repeat sentence coming up real soon. If you have further questions, you can leave them in the comments below, or you can ring me up for some private tutoring. Please don't burn down the 5G towers and think that will be your miracle cure, and I'll see you all next time.